Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP, and the guest is Alana McLaughlin. Alana has some information to talk about dealing with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and she has again agreed, as at earlier shows, to talk about that information within the context of some of the questions that people might have in reference to this very, very important organization. Alana, let's start by having you to talk about Alana McLaughlin this morning, to talk about your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in terms of eventually leading you to us this morning, and especially to talk about such a very, very important topic as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Let's get some information, then we'll talk about that topic.
Okay, so my first school was Napier Elementary School, where I had Mr. Downey for pre-K. And then my second school was Alex Green, where I did kindergarten and first grade with Mrs. Harfield for kindergarten and Mrs. Jennifer Berry for first grade. Now, after that, I again switched schools to Glenn Elementary, where I did second and third grade because for second I had Trudy Vest, and for third I had Wendy Anderson. Now I am currently in fourth grade with teacher Caitlin Astrew at Robert Churchwell Magnet Museum Elementary.
And so you think that this educational environment has given you enough courage to want to talk about what we consider to be a very, very serious topic, and that is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. But as all of us know, you can not talk about that topic until you deal with that crucial issue of slavery. And let's talk about what you know about the institution of slavery that started more than 300 years, in which Africans were involved for more than 300 years. What about slavery as you know it?
Well, slavery started, it just basically started, and then it went on for 300 years. And after those 300 years, the black people were just free from being owned by a slave owner.
Yeah.
Now, it was illegal to have a slave, and in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, the 13th states that all black people have freedom, and the 14th stated that they are legally a citizen, and the 15th gave them the right to vote.
And so in a real sense, the end of the Civil War that came, as most folks believe, in 1865. And so you're saying that these three amendments, the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment to the Constitution, not only ended slavery, but it put black people in a very, very different situation. Now, how did people react to Africans being emancipated, being free, given citizenship, and given the right to vote?
Well, some terrorist groups did not like that at all. They wanted to push black people back into slavery, for they thought that the black people couldn't be citizens, that they shouldn't have the right to vote, and that they should not be a citizen.
And so there was quite a bit of opposition, you're saying, to, now who were some of the individuals who opposed this, some groups that opposed this idea of African citizenship and freedom and et cetera?
Well, the NAACP started in 1909, in which their dream was to get the barrier from black people and white people and just to make it go away.
So there was an idea about equality even with the very, very beginning of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Is that what we're saying?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and I think what we're preparing now for the next minute, the end of the show. But I think that what you said now about the NAACP, you've indicated that it's a very, very important organization, and you've given the date in which it started in 1909. And when we come back, what we want to do is to delve further into this whole issue of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, because I think what you tried to do now is to hit only the top. And I want you to talk about the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, the 14th and the 15th Amendment when we come back. But first we have to have this first commercial break. But do you have any problems in terms of what the delivery of the information that you're giving us today?
No problems. I am very prepared, and I am very ready to speak of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People.
Okay, and so we want you to speak to that issue within the next 20 seconds, you see, because we've got that time, and so within the next 20 seconds, we want you to tell everything that you know about the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, because this was your idea. You must remember to talk about this crucial organization. And of course, we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. The topic is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, and we're talking to Alana McLaughlin, who has given us some information in reference to the establishment of slavery in 1619 and ending in 1865, and the outcome in a real sense of the 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment. And so, Alana, let's pick up where we left off during that first segment, and to have you to give us some information in reference to efforts to end the institution of slavery that ultimately led to the 13th Amendment. Who are some of the individuals and some of the ideas that played an important part with making slave people want to oppose slavery?
Well, some people just thought that slavery was wrong, and I am one of those people. But also some white people thought that slavery was wrong also. So for example, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, they all thought that slavery was not a good thing, but they all tried their hardest to get rid of slavery, some more than others. As Martin Luther King said, he had a dream that one day we would all live in peace, and that one day we would all love each other. One day there would be no hatred, there would just be peace on earth. Rosa Parks had that same idea, because they all thought that, hey, why can we not be treated equally like the white people? Are they better than us? Because every person in the world is the same in God's eyes.
Okay, and so there's a real need and a real sense among all people to end the institution of slavery, and that was done by the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. I think that at one time when we talked about some of these terrorist organizations, one of the groups that you talked about had to do with the birth of the nation. Why don't you give us some information in reference to the birth of the nation and how that fitted into slavery and et cetera?
Well, some terrorist groups, they all started because there was this movie, The Birth of a Nation, and it talks about how they treated black people unfairly, and they thought that it would just be, a good idea to just treat them like they're nothing. And The Birth of a Nation really started the chaos back, because when it kind of simmered down, when that movie came out, everybody just rose up, and we were all, the black people were all, well, that's unfair because we can be treated equally because slavery is abolished. And then on the white side, they were like, you are nothing, you mean nothing to us. So the birth of a nation really started chaos in basically Mississippi to everywhere.
And so, what about this? The Birth of a Nation, as I understand it, was a movie. As a matter of fact, it was a movie, and it dealt with a specific organization. So what organization did this Birth of a Nation deal with?
Well, the movie, it started the third Ku Klux Klan, and it started them up because it reminded them that the former Ku Klux Klaners said that they are going to push black people back into slavery, and they are going to work till they die to make sure that black people do not have the same rights as whites.
Well, this was immediately after the war in 1865, but the organization you're talking about was long after even the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People was started. When did this organization start? What was it all about, the NAACP? Who are they concerned with?
Well, the NAACP, also known as the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, started in 1909, and it started out with only 32 people, and they would meet in Maryland, Baltimore, where they would discuss all the issues of black people not having their own rights, and they have to be segregated, and they have to drink over here or eat over here or get shoes at this place, and they weren't treated like the white people were treated, because back then white people were like majesty. They were given all the best things. They were royalty, and the black people were just, they treated them like nobodies. They treated them like they didn't exist. And
so this organization, the NAACP, started in an effort to try to sort of, I guess you would say, to sort of reinforce these ideas of the 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment, to remind people that at one time that Africans were able to exercise those rights. But now, after segregation, now when you talk about segregation, what about this segregation?
Well, segregation, it really means that the white and black people can't join together and be one. It has to be either white people over here or black people over here, or just, throw away the black people and just keep the white people. They thought that since the black people originated from slavery, they shouldn't have the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. They didn't want to give them the right to vote. They didn't want them to be citizens. They didn't want to give them freedom. They wanted to push them back into slavery like it was when it was abolished.
And so in a real sense, this organization is really concerned about those, what you call civil rights amendments, the 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment. Do you think that many people in your class or in your age are aware of the 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendment to the Constitution? No, they're not. More youth and more of the teenagers or growing people up, they need to learn that their heritage came from slavery. Every black person in this world needs to learn about their heritage, because their heritage was struggle, fighting for their lives, and fighting for their 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. And so it's important that people your age, 9 years old, be familiar with some of the things that happened in the past, so that they might be able to do better today. Is that what you're saying? Do you find any efforts made by other young people your age to do that, to organize and help folks? Well, I started a club to stop bullying, because I fear that bullying really ties in with what the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, that's what they wanted. They wanted to stop bullying. They wanted to stop the white people from pressuring and fighting with the black people. They wanted to stop white kids from beating and killing the black kids. They wanted to make them one. They just wanted them to combine to make a sea full of colors, to make a world with no hate. And so those are some of the ideas that you think that are sort of current among the people of your age group. Do you speak about these kinds of things to other students